Welcome to the Food on Demand podcast, where we dish up insights on the future of restaurants relating to off-premises operations and the overall digital dining experience. I'm Bernadette Heyer, the managing editor.
And I'm Adam Wahlberg, the associate editor. Food on Demand is your exclusive media source here to help restaurant operators meet the digital guests where they are. Be sure to check out our Off-Premises University webinar series that's now live and subscribe to our weekly newsletter.
Also, as mentioned before, nominations are open for our Outstanding Operators program, and we want to spotlight restaurants that are nailing off-premises operations or being innovative. If you know anyone who deserves recognition, please nominate them at foodondemand.com. And they will receive a feature article from us, a free pass to our next conference. That's May 5th through 7th at the Bellagio in Las Vegas, and some onstage recognition as well as a charity donation. So please check that out if you're interested. It's going to be great. Now, before I dive into the guest interview today with CEO and co-founder of PathSpot, Christine Schindler, it's time for our Quick Bite segment where we share what's been sizzling in our kitchens lately. So Adam, take it away.
Well, thank you, Bernadette. I recently took another trip into the world of robots by talking to the CEO of Kitchen Robotics. And I talked to him about his Bistro automated kitchen solution. They've just installed it in their first commercial location at a university, at Florida International University. It's a robot automated kitchen. They, load in ingredients and put it in containers, and you can watch it work, and it takes about 4 minutes, and then it spits out a meal freshly prepared in front of you. It's pretty slick. It takes about 4 minutes. So students at Florida International University can now go to their student union and order up things like pasta Alfredo with fresh ingredients. And it seems to be going really well, according to my guy at Kitchen Robotics. Now, to have this installed at a location like a university, there still does need to be some humans involved. You need a chef overseeing it to load in the ingredients, to design the menus. And then you do need somebody to actually plate the food and hand it to a student. But that's it. So far, they're handling their rush hours pretty well. They can do 4 meals at a time at this automated kitchen space and up to 600 a day. And it's all pretty slick. My question was, well, is that like super expensive to bring in? Is that going to be a real, price barrier? Perhaps, but I was actually surprised when they told me they can lease this out for a monthly fee of about $4,000 a month, which I thought was actually a little surprising. I thought it'd be more. Their pitch is this can save you money in labor costs over the long run. And so, for about $4,000 a month to have this in a student center and have students, get their lunch that way, pretty cool. The students seem to be liking it from the stories I'm reading. Now, do I think bistros are gonna be everywhere in college campuses anytime soon? Probably not. I think there's still a learning curve. But I could see university officials making a pitch internally if it proves that it's healthy. It's a healthy solution, that at least students are getting vegetables this way. Because a lot of the dishes are like pad thai or chicken salad. So I'll be keeping an eye on it. Back to you, Bernadette.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. That reminds me of, like the hyphen make line that Chipotle deployed, I think in a few locations now, but mainly it was in their Cultivate Center where they test their new technologies. And that was also an automated make line, dispensing ingredients and so forth. So we are seeing that technology pop up a bit. So we'll keep an eye on that. Well, speaking of universities, we did go see the Starship robots in person that we've been talking about in the past episodes. So as mentioned, the University of Minnesota did a partnership with Starship robots for their sidewalk autonomous delivery robots. And, we covered that world extensively, but we never got to see one in person being in Minnesota, as this is a first for our state. So Adam and I trekked over to the campus and saw one of these robots in action. And it works just like what we report on. We basically on the Starship app, you order your meal, and we had the director of services there order a coffee, and we watched as the little robot rolled on over to us with its orange flag raised. She typed in a code, opened it up. Her hot coffee was ready for her and intact. And then it buzzed away, avoiding students. So it's really interesting to see it work completely autonomously. And what stuck out to Adam and I was discussing the Minnesota winters because we get hit pretty hard here. And so we were wondering how these robots would work on campus in the snow, but apparently they get fitted with snow tires and they can travel from 4 to 6 inches, which was a bit crazy to me of snow. And so it was really interesting to see this in person. She explains how Starship spent several days on campus ahead of time, mapping the entire campus. So they would allow the robots to traverse around, determine where it needed to cross streets. And so with its sensors all over, it can really avoid these people and obstacles. And apparently does get smarter as it goes with machine learning. We even had a little laugh when she talked about the robots crossing the street and that they wait an inordinate amount of time before crossing the street, she said. So they are cautious. But that was our fun little trip we wanted to update you guys on. But I believe that's all I have. Adam, any comments on our experience at the U of M?
No, except I loved it. And, even though I'm a little wait and see on like an automated robot kitchen like they have at Florida International University with Bistro, I'm very bullish on the takeover of delivery robots. As you said, this is the first time you and I had seen it, and it's just fun. And there's a
Mhm,
real, that really, products that are fun do well. And you saw that
mhm,
little sucker come up with a coffee and scoot away. I just thought, and I know they're already very successful in other parts of the
mhm.
country. So I actually think delivery robots, I don't see if they, especially if they can have snow tires in cold weather states, I would expect we're going to see them everywhere in the next few years. And I think they're fun.
Yeah, especially on campuses, it just makes a lot of sense for this technology. But she did mention that they hope to one day see the program extend to some students living off campus too. But that has to be worked with the city of Minneapolis and so forth. But yeah, these are really popular. Well, that's everything for today, and it's time now. I'll get into my guest interview. So talk to you soon, Adam. Thank you.
Thanks, Bernadette.
All right, now it is time for our guest interview with Christine Schindler. She is the CEO and co-founder of PathSpot. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Really excited to have you. I know we connected, I think, last year a bit, but I'm really looking forward to this podcast so I can learn more about you. You have an interesting background. And then, of course, dive into these food safety solutions that you're doing for the restaurant industry. So, just start off, Christine. If anyone out there hasn't heard of you, can you give me a background into your role today?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love having time to talk about food safety, so I'm excited for our conversation today as well. My background is in biomedical engineering and global and public health. And I actually started my career on the research side of that world. And I spent time working in the developing world in hospital networks there and on the research side of building low cost but medical grade durable devices, obviously for very resource constricted settings, mostly in the Kilimanjaro region. And we needed to be able to make the medical equipment that's in our day-to-day hospitals here work when there's no power and no Wi-Fi and no heat and no ceiling in some cases.
Yeah.
Um, and when I got back to the US, I was working full time in hospital networks here domestically. But I just started to see all of these public health issues in day-to-day life, that I felt like could also benefit from low cost, durable, accessible medical tools. And one of them was this huge issue of foodborne illnesses, right? People getting incredibly sick, hospitalizations, I mean, even deaths from these outbreaks that were spawning from all kinds of things. Maybe it was lettuce or it was cereal. But as a biomedical engineer, I was looking at that and saying, Okay, but lettuce doesn't spawn illness, right? So what happened in our supply chain and how did this spread? And it turns out that all of the instances of that are totally preventable. It's hand washing, it's proper temperature control, it's expired food, it's all these aspects of food compliance that have real regulation around, but are just really hard to maintain. So then my follow-up question was, in today's world, why is there no technology driven solution to help support this? We're relying on pieces of paper and guess and check and hope for the best in an environment where team members are incredibly busy in a restaurant or in a
Yeah.
food manufacturing facility. And so I decided to try to create one. And that was the start of PathSpot. And now we create a fully holistic digital platform for all things health and safety, with a set of different products that hit the most critical aspects of the food safety system.
Yeah, that's really interesting hearing what inspired you and what you wanted to bring over here and help out the safety with the restaurant sector. And so you talked about the development of PathSpot, and I want to dive farther into that. So for anyone listening, this is a very high-tech hand scanner that can really help you wash your hands properly and be safer in your settings. Can you dive into what that technology is?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a series of different products. The one you mentioned is our flagship product. 89% of these contaminants are passed through food handling. And it's a rule of thumb in food safety. The more food handling, the more opportunity for something to get cross-contaminated. One thing that was contaminated to be spread everywhere. It's a huge risk area. And so we created a tool that mounts on the wall next to a hand washing sink. And right after a team member washes their hands, they put them underneath, flip them over, and it instantly pops up on a screen. Either green, you're all clear, you can go back to work, or red, you just need to rewash and rescan your hands to check for that. Then we also track hand washing. So we're actually encouraging hand washing behavior. How many times have you washed your hands? How well were those hand washes? And then we do really intentional data-driven approach to training. So if a team member says right now, hey, team, gotta wash your hands once an hour for 20 seconds, it's important. I mean, let's be real. We've moved
Yeah.
on from that before the team members even finish saying what they need to do. So our trainings are really customized. It's more like, hey, team, last week we didn't hit enough hand washes during the lunch rush. I know it's hard, but really try to wash your hands between 12 and 1. And look, we're really seeing contamination passed on our ring fingers. We know we're not supposed to wear rings in the restaurant. Can you make sure to either take off your rings or really scrub those down so that we don't harbor any contamination? What do you know? Contaminants go down, hand washing goes up, and it's a safer and more effective restaurant for all. We combine that with a series of other sensors, including temperature monitoring, labeling monitoring and expiration management, digital checklists, and all of these different sensors interact together to give the team member a holistic view of what's going on from a safety compliance standpoint across the restaurant.
Right. So essentially, this is a lot of kind of back of house technology tracking for the employees and so forth.
Exactly. I mean, when you talk to a team member, and I haven't met one yet, but maybe I will, about why they got into working in a restaurant, no one says, well, I really wanted to fill out all these safety logs, right? No,
Uh-huh.
they got into this because they want to interact with guests. They want to prepare food. They want to serve good food. These are amazing things about our industry that I'm so grateful to be a part of. But we're missing something because we have tons of food safety tasks that are required, all these checklists, all these logs. And so by creating really a digital back of house tool that covers all this for them, I mean, honestly, the first step of when we start working with a restaurant is we're like, give us everything you currently do on paper. Just send us your binders. And then we work to create a fully digital setup for that. So one, you're actually learning from the data you pull in. And two, at an hour by hour basis, you're getting constant trainings and recommendations of what you need to do to make the biggest impact in your location.
Yeah, absolutely. And so clearly, this must have been very beneficial during the pandemic. Did you see the use of the technology ramp up during that time, or have people continued to be more wary of safety?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, that was a very challenging time for the industry as a whole. I don't need to tell anyone listening to this podcast that. I think if there is any silver lining to that, incredibly difficult experience. It's that as a society, we became a lot more aware of the vectors of illness and just how illness spreads, right? Prior to the pandemic, I would talk to people and I'd say, you need to wash your hands for 20 seconds. They'd be like, no way, that's way too long. People didn't understand how disease actually spread. And now we're just a lot more educated. And so I hope that, not only does that and has that increased the investment in tools like ours that can elevate, we're not specifically looking for COVID-19 and we never were, but can elevate overarching safety practices. But it's also led to just a more educated workforce on this topic where they're advocating for it, and it can be a real differentiator. People saying, I want to work somewhere that prioritizes and cares about my health and my safety is something we hear, so much more frequently than we did 5 years ago.
Yeah, I know something you said in my last interview with you was it's interesting that most places it's just a poster usually in like by the sink saying, hey, don't forget to wash your hands. And that's usually the main what mainly is there. So clearly this is what you're aiming to solve.
Exactly. Like we have posters, we have clipboards, we have
Hmm.
pens and paper. We don't have a way to learn from any of that. And the other thing is, even if everyone's doing everything perfectly on all those pieces of paper, how is that actually elevating operations? Because we can't learn from something that's not tracked and has no data-driven approach to it. And so not only does it ensure that all this is being done, but it also creates an opportunity to actually improve SOPs. A lot of times right now, SOPs are pretty linear. Do this once an hour. Well, why? Well, we don't know how often we should do it, so let's just do it then. Whereas it may make more sense to do something twice an hour during a period where volumes are higher, and once an hour when it's not, or once every 2 hours and other times. Like we can really optimize based on these safety compliance metrics, while of course also ensuring that all the documentation is taken care of for any audits or regulatory expectations.
Yeah, that's fantastic and clearly very beneficial for anyone listening who's interested. And, so food on demand, we do cover a lot of things in relation to delivery, takeout, off-premises operations, and just the overall technology space, which is why I wanted to highlight PathSpot because no matter what you do across the industry, whether it's off-premise, in-store, food safety and food quality continues to be such a hot topic. No matter what. And a lot of that, as mentioned, goes back to employee safety as well as temperature monitoring and making sure that things are up to date. I'm curious, since you've seen this shift from the pandemic and there's now restaurants are, so omni-channel. They're not only serving guests in store, but they're also have delivery drivers coming. They have so much happening. What do you see in the space right now that maybe could use improvement for safety across that sector? Or maybe what are you looking at to help solve that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And what you said is an awesome call out and part of why I love getting to work in this specific aspect of and space is food safety is a strong equalizer across the industry. Everyone is responsible for it, from the farm to the packaging facility to a grocery store. We work with grocery stores, cafeterias, all different types and sizes and shapes of restaurants and environments, hotel dining, hospitality. I mean, it really runs the gamut of all these different groups and opportunity areas because all of them require safe and quality of food.
Yeah.
And if there's an outbreak or issue in one area, it makes people question the food supply everywhere. So it's actually
Mhm.
something that everyone is in this together as a team to create safe and healthy food for all these different opportunity areas. And I think, as you mentioned, in today's world, there's so many different cross functions, and technology is really elevating the capability for us to get those different cross functional capabilities across the industry. But it leaves opportunity for there to be more risk as well. And, it really is a food safety standard that the more time something is handled, the higher the risk. That is the direct correlation. And so when you're imagining these omni-channel approaches of things getting prepared offsite or in different areas, getting shipped here, then getting shipped there, it's an opportunity for more cross-contamination and more risk. And also, consumers and employees alike are demanding an understanding of the supply chain. Like, how is this actually all working? Where am I
Yeah.
getting this food from? If you didn't make it back there, where was it made and was it safe? These are questions people are asking. And
Mhm.
so we really find that the only way to combat and evolve through that is through a digital platform. How do we
Great.
make sure that at every stage of this food, we know that hands were washed, the temperature was correct, it hit appropriate expiration targets, and it was handled according to all the required standards? It's kind of like the blockchain of safety, right?
Yeah.
Um, and being able to communicate that effectively and quickly, right? Because that's the other component in this, is a huge area of opportunity. And it's the piece that we're working on building out with these different organizations.
Yeah, I love that. And that's why I wanted to highlight you on the show. And also, knowing there's been some outbreaks in the news recently with some of the larger chains. So, the conversation is clearly never ending.
And it's true, right? These things keep happening. And
Hmm.
it's similar to what I mentioned before. The risk is there. And the challenge point is that in our food safety ecosystem in general, it is very reactionary. And many brands have very robust platforms for being able to react appropriately when these things happen. And that's something that I am very grateful for, and that swift action can make a huge impact. The question mark that we're asking is, instead of being reactionary, how do we get proactive on this? How do we get data on what's going to happen with food safety before we hear that someone got sick?
Right.
Um, and that is the crux behind all of this, is how do we get ahead of those pieces and really use data-driven insights to ensure that we're stopping things before they even have a challenge at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds fantastic. And so I think you already mentioned this, but if anyone is listening and interested in having your technology in the back of house, whether that's a PathSpot scanner or your food temperature monitoring technology, what's the best way they go about that?
Yeah, I mean, the best way is to get in contact with us. Pathspot.com has all of our information, and you can fill out a request for what your operation looks like, and we'll get back to you with how to implement those solutions. But it's pretty easy. I mean,
Mhm.
we're really building on the food safety protocols that already exist, the brands already have. We're not inventing something from scratch. We're just creating a digital playbook for being able to implement it as effectively as possible.
Great. Well, thank you so much for diving all into the technology. I wanted to move a bit into just in general, you being a leader and a woman leader in technology. I know you were featured on the Forbes 30 under 30 list. So can you kind of tell me a bit about your journey and any unique obstacles or things you've learned at becoming an entrepreneur at a younger age?
I definitely have obstacles every single day, if not every hour, as I build this business and organization. I think that one of the best parts to combat it has been how receptive this industry, especially, is to feedback, growth, and supporting each other. And that's the biggest learning for me, has been finding mentors, whether that's through customers or leaders of other restaurant platforms or companies that are really willing to sit down and help us learn how to best support this industry. And when I think about our tool in general and my background, I really approached it as like, I think we have something here. But if I had gone into a dark closet by myself and tried to build it, I would have built the wrong thing. It's all about rapid iteration, understanding the customer, trying again, trying again, trying again. And now we get to a point where when I meet with customers for the first time, they say, wow, it's like you built this system just for me. And the reality is, we kind of did, because we built it through immense amounts of feedback from individual groups and locations. And so that's really how I've combated it. Is I think there can be benefit to being a young entrepreneur that doesn't have preconceived notions of what's going to work and what isn't, because it allows you to really be in tune with the customer and allow their journey and their experience to help shape the product and the company overall.
Well, I appreciate that advice. I know we have listeners who might be starting a startup right now, or just some young folks who look up to people like you. So thank you. What would you say has been one of your career highlights so far?
Wow, that's a great question. I think for me, often my career highlights are when our team grows. When you are able to start working with someone who's way smarter than you in something you're already doing and able to watch the superpower charge that that brings to the business, especially at a fast growth stage. Those moments are really powerful. And similarly, having partnerships with large organizations that I really look up to that, when we were starting this, it was like, well, I don't even know how I would begin working with them and building a program together and then scaling it across their organization, really joining their team. I think for me, both sides of highlights are related to team, whether it's, our internal team or the teams we join as we become true partners in food safety journey with other brands. And that combination, it just reminds me why we're doing it from the
Yeah.
beginning. Those are the big pieces, but on a day-to-day basis, what keeps me going? It's oftentimes when I'm just talking to someone who works in a restaurant and they say, this product makes me feel safer coming to work. This
Yeah.
product makes me feel like my brand cares about me. Those are the moments when I'm like, that's exactly the reason. If we can have one person feel that way, then that's all the career highlight I need.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Anything I haven't mentioned about PathSpot or you're looking forward to with the company, or in general that we didn't touch on?
There's so many things I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
The growth that we're hitting right now and the reception of the industry across the board, as I mentioned, in all these different facets of food, and the critical nature of this that also gives us the opportunity to elevate something that honestly hasn't really been elevated since the early 1900s is really rewarding. And not
Yeah.
only are we expanding here in the US, but we're really growing internationally and globally as well,
Yeah.
and watching the impact as our world moves into such a global ecosystem and sphere, seeing how food is passed through all of that, and a whole nother layer of omnichannel is
Yeah.
really empowering as well. So I only see, bright skies and an exciting future for food safety across the board. And that's not only through the work we're doing, but just in general as brands and different government agencies and organizations are all committed to creating a holistic platform that really makes sense for our operators.
Well, I look forward to seeing the industry continue to improve in this space and with companies like yours that are highlighting that. So we appreciate that. Before I let you go today, Christine, I'd like to move over to our fun segment at the end we do, which is called
Great.
Did You Leave Room for Dessert? Where I like to ask a few fun random questions to get to know you better out of the PathSpot universe, if
I
that's all
always
right.
have room for dessert, so
Perfect.
we're in a good place.
Right. Sometimes I start with dessert. So, awesome. So I'm curious if you have any hobbies, secret talents, or what you like to do outside of work.
Oh, okay. Secret talent. I am really good at making balloon animals.
Really? That is
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm really good at making balloon animals. I
That might
love
be the best answer I've gotten.
it's a unique one. It's a unique one
Mhm.
for sure. So that's a fun talent if anyone wants to contract me for an upcoming birthday party.
There you
Uh,
go.
a great creative outlet. But yeah, I mean, I love, exploring different places, traveling, exploring food in those places, especially spending time with family and friends. And of course, always getting outside, especially on a beautiful day like today in New York.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any pets or any family members you'd like to mention?
I travel a ton, so
Hmm.
no pets as of current.
Yeah.
Although always happy to adopt a friend's pet for the day or support a friend in their pet journey. But I have three siblings, and always enjoy getting to visit them and their different locations and spending time with them.
Sounds good. And my final question is what was your latest book you've read or series you've watched? Something that you enjoyed that you'd like to mention?
Oh, I just read the book Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I don't know if you've read that one,
I have
but it
not.
is an amazing novel, very much worth reading.
Got it. Well, you heard it
I
here.
love to read. My Kindle is definitely attached to me, especially when I'm hopping on planes, having time to read and unplug from the world into a fiction novel is definitely one of
Yes.
my joys.
Same here. I also have my Kindle on me when I travel as well. All right. Well, those are my few fun questions, Christine. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your journey and share everything about PathSpot. Is there anything else you'd like to mention before we say goodbye?
Well, definitely anyone listening to this, feel free to reach out. As I mentioned, we grow so much from feedback in the industry and would love the opportunity to learn from the experiences of anyone listening to this podcast. Or of course, if you want to talk more about your specific food safety needs, we'd love to do that too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.
Awesome.